Today, we will tell 3 stories about people who disappeared without a trace and whose cases remain unsolved to this day. Elisa Lam, the vanishing at the Cecil. This is one of the biggest mysteries that has never been solved. In January 2013, a young woman by the name of Elisa Lam traveled to Los Angeles for a vacation. She was staying at the Cecil Hotel, also known as the Stay on Main. The hotel was popular with both tourists and the homeless. But from the time Elisa arrived at the hotel, she was acting very strangely. On the second day, after checking into the hotel, she went missing. Her family waited 2 days before reporting her missing, because they thought she was just backpacking around city. The last place she was seen was on the 14th floor of the hotel. The CCTV footage shows her entering the elevator. She presses the button for the 14th floor and steps out. Then she presses the button again and goes down to the first floor. She can be seen talking to someone off camera. Then she gets back into the elevator and goes back up to the 14th floor. This was on January 29th, 2013. No one knows what happened to her after this. Her family contacted the police after not hearing from her for 2 days. When the police searched her room, they found nothing out of the ordinary except for her wallet, passport, and phone were missing. They did find her luggage, though, which contained a laptop, clothing, and other personal effects. After seeing the CCTV footage, the police were puzzled by what they saw. After going up to the 14th floor, Elise didn't go to her room, 1417. Instead, the police believe she went to the roof. On February 19, 2013, a worker was cleaning the rooftop cistern when he saw a foot sticking out from under some debris. The police were called, and they soon realized it was Elisa's foot. The cistern was filled with water and was used to supply water to the hotel during power outages. It was also only accessible by hotel staff members. There's no way a guest could have gotten up there. Elisa's body was sent for an autopsy, but it showed no signs of trauma or foul play. The coroner said she had been dead for several days, but her cause of death was unknown. There are many theories surrounding Elisa's death. One theory is that she climbed up to the roof and then jumped into the cistern. But if that was the case, why was she on the roof in the first place? And how did she get past the locked door leading to the roof? The only people who had keys to the roof were the hotel staff. Another theory is that she was murdered and that her body was put into the cistern. But there were no signs of a struggle in her room, and there were no witnesses to any such struggle. Why would the killer choose such a strange place to dump her body? And then there are the even stranger theories. Some people believe that Elisa never checked into the hotel at all, that the whole thing was a hoax. She made up the entire thing so that she could disappear and start a new life somewhere else. But if that was the case, why leave all of her stuff behind? Others believe that Elisa was the victim of a serial killer known as the Night Stalker. He was active in the area at the time and was known to target young women. However, he was eventually caught and Elisa's death was ruled a suicide. But here's where things get really strange. A man named Joseph was staying in the room next to Elisa's. He claimed that he heard screams coming from her room in the middle of the night. He reported this to the police, but they never seemed to take him seriously. And then there's the most popular theory of them all, that Elisa was a victim of foul play, but she wasn't murdered by a human. She was killed by a member of the undead. Yes, people believe that Elisa was killed by a zombie. And there's one piece of evidence that seems to support this, her behavior. Just days before her death, she posted a strange video on YouTube. In the video, she talks about a zombie apocalypse and how she will survive by barricading herself in a room with canned food and water. Was she trying to tell us something? The truth is, we may never know what happened to Elisa. Her death is one of the biggest mysteries of our time. And as far as the zombie theory goes, well, let's just say I wouldn't rule it out. The disappearance of Brandon Swanson. A haunting mystery in rural Minnesota. On the night of May 13, 2008, Brandon Victor Swanson, a 19-year-old college student from Marshall, Minnesota, vanished under mysterious and troubling circumstances. His case has since become one of Minnesota's most baffling missing person stories, marked by a chilling final phone call, extensive search efforts, and a legacy of legal reform, but no answers. Brandon had recently completed his first year at Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby. where he was studying wind turbine technology. Known as bright, independent, and determined, he was legally blind in his left eye, but lived a normal, active life. The night he disappeared, he was celebrating the end of the semester with friends at two small gatherings, first in the town of Lind, and later in Canby. Though some friends reported he had consumed alcohol, no one considered him visibly intoxicated. Sometime after midnight, Brandon left the party in Canby and began the 30-mile drive back to his home in Marshall. Instead of taking the main highway, he appeared to take back roads, possibly to avoid police detection due to a prior DUI conviction. Around 1:15 a.m., Brandon's car veered off a rural gravel road and became stuck in a shallow ditch. He was not injured, but unable to drive out. At 1:54 a.m., he called his parents, Brian and Annette Swanson, to tell them what had happened. He said he believed he was near the towns of Lind or Marshall and could see lights in the distance. He stayed on the phone with his parents for nearly an hour as they tried to locate him, all while remaining calm, cooperative, and focused. During the 47-minute call, Brandon became increasingly frustrated when they could not find each other. He ultimately decided to leave the car and walk toward the lights he believed were from the nearby town of Lind. He told his father to meet him in a bar parking lot there. The call continued until, at exactly 2:30 a.m., Brandon suddenly exclaimed, "Oh shit!" and the call went dead. It was the last time anyone heard from him. Brandon's parents reported him missing later that morning. At first, law enforcement did not treat the case with urgency, noting that young adults often disappear voluntarily. But when Brandon didn't return home or contact anyone, a serious search effort began. The location of his car was soon discovered, not near Lind as Brandon believed, but outside the small town of Taunton, nearly 25 miles away. The discrepancy raised immediate questions. Why was Brandon so far off course? Was he disoriented? Or was there something else going on? Church dogs were brought in and picked up Brandon's scent. The trail led from the car through fields, along gravel roads, and eventually toward the Yellow Medicine River. At one point, his dogs indicated that Brandon had entered the river, possibly fell in, and climbed out on the other side. The scent then continued for some distance, before vanishing completely. Despite extensive ground, air, and water searches, no physical trace of Brandon, no clothing, body, phone, or personal items, has ever been found. The mystery has generated numerous theories. One widely considered possibility is that Brandon fell into the river and drowned. But even after extensive water searches, no remains have surfaced. Others suspect he may have succumbed to hypothermia or had a fatal accident in the remote farmland. There are even darker speculations involving foul play or a hit-and-run incident, though no evidence supports these scenarios. What makes Brandon's disappearance especially tragic is how avoidable it might have been. Delays in the initial police response due to outdated policies on adult missing persons likely hindered early search efforts. In response, Brandon's family became advocates for change, and in July 2009, Minnesota passed Brandon's law. This legislation mandates that law enforcement must immediately begin investigating missing adults. If there is concern for their safety, regardless of age, it has since helped countless other families avoid similar obstacles. Today, Brandon's case remains unsolved. His parents continue to keep their porch light on every night, a symbol of hope that their son may one day return. Law enforcement agencies still receive tips and conduct periodic searches over the vast 122 square mile area where he vanished. The last word Brandon ever spoke, "Oh shit," continues to haunt those who study his case, hinting at a sudden, possibly fatal event that may never be fully understood. Brandon Swanson's disappearance is not just a cold case. It's a deeply human story about uncertainty, heartbreak, and the relentless pursuit of answers. It stands as a cautionary tale and a call for compassion, awareness, and persistence in how we respond to those who go missing. On the night of March 31st, 2006, a 27-year-old medical student named Brian Schaefer vanished without a trace in Columbus, Ohio. He was last seen at a bar near the Ohio State University campus. His disappearance quickly became one of the most puzzling missing person cases in modern American history, not only because of the strange circumstances, but also because to this day, there has been no solid lead, no sign of foul play, and no confirmed sighting of Brian since that night. The most haunting part of the case Surveillance footage showed Brian entering the bar but never leaving. Brian Schaefer was, by all accounts, a bright and kind young man. A second-year medical student at Ohio State University, he had plans for the future and dreams that went beyond medicine. He had a deep love for music, especially the band Pearl Jam. And he once told friends he hoped to become a doctor by day and a musician by night. He had a serious girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner, and the two were preparing for a spring break trip to Miami scheduled for just days after his disappearance. Despite the recent death of his mother, a loss that deeply affected him, Brian seemed to be coping, staying close with family and continuing with school. On March 31st, 2006, Brian and his friend Clint Florence decided to go out for drinks to celebrate the start of spring break. The two visited several bars around Columbus before arriving at the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a second-story bar located near the university, around 1:15 a.m. Security footage showed Brian, Clint, and a friend named Meredith Reed taking the escalator up to the bar. Later footage at approximately 1:55 a.m. showed Brian standing just outside the bar, talking briefly to two women. Then he turned to walk back toward the bar's entrance, and from that point on, he was never seen again. What made Brian's disappearance so mysterious was the fact that the Ugly Tuna Saloon had only one public entrance and exit, both covered by security cameras. The cameras captured Brian going in, but never coming out. Police reviewed the footage carefully, even frame by frame, but Brian simply never reappeared. Some suggested he might have changed clothes and exited disguised, but there was no clear evidence of that. Others speculated he could have left through a back exit used by staff, which led to a dark, dangerous construction site. But even if he had taken that route, it was risky and illogical, especially for someone who had plans to leave for vacation days later. When Brian didn't show up for his flight to Miami with Alexis on April 3rd, his family and friends became alarmed. He was officially reported missing, and a large-scale search began. Authorities used sniffer dogs, checked hospitals, scoured riverbanks, and questioned everyone who had seen him that night. Nothing was found. No credit card activity, no cell phone signals, no eyewitness reports. It was as if Brian had disappeared into thin air. One aspect that complicated the investigation was the behavior of Clint Florence. Though Clint was one of the last people to see Brian that night, he reportedly refused to take a polygraph test and became uncooperative with police. While this doesn't prove guilt, it has led many to wonder if he knows more than he said. Alexis, Brian's girlfriend, never stopped searching. She continued to call his phone daily for months, hoping it would ring and he would answer. Strangely, the phone rang multiple times one evening, months after his disappearance, though cell towers placed it in a town hours away. This could have been a glitch, or something else. Brian's father, Randy Schaefer, spent years searching for his son and trying to raise awareness about his case. Tragically, Randy died in 2008 after a tree fell on him during a storm. At his funeral, someone reportedly left a condolence message online signed, "To Dad, love, Brian." Though this message was likely a cruel hoax, it added another strange layer to the mystery. Over the years, numerous theories have been proposed. Some believe Brian may have suffered an accident and died in the construction area behind the bar, possibly hidden from view. Others think he may have been the victim of foul play or left voluntarily to start a new life, though this seems unlikely given his close ties and future plans. Despite occasional tips and false sightings, no credible evidence has ever surfaced. Today, the case of Brian Schaefer remains unsolved. His image is etched into the minds of those who follow missing persons cases, and his story continues to appear on television shows, podcasts, and online forums. The idea that someone could walk into a bar and never walk out, and never be found, is unsettling to all who hear it. His loved ones, especially his brother and former girlfriend, still hope for answers, or at the very least, peace. Brian Schaefer's disappearance is not just a cold case. It's a haunting reminder that sometimes, even in a world full of cameras, connections, and technology, a person can vanish without a trace. And until answers are found, the question will remain: how does someone enter a bar but never leave?